Vadd here, welcome to episode 19 of the Book of Docs. We are continuing to put head buffs into dragons, head buffs into wyverns, and head buffs into our Manticores. These Manticores have stat points already put into them. It's still pretty much a flat 50% permanent stat increase across the board, and it's going to be in our status bar. You can only do that head buff once. We also want to take a closer look at that corruption stone. We've seen a couple different ways we can use it, and this time we're going to check out again option 1, but we're going to look at the Pteranodon Pygmy. See here, we've got this nice Pteranodon Pygmy, the PT Pygmy. If we give it the corruption stone, we're going to get this glow in the eye, that corrupt kind of pink, purple, lavender glow, and we're going to get it in our status bar. It's going to show the Pygmy icon, purple, and you can see we get a bonus to the damage by an additional 5%, while we also are going to be receiving 3% more damage as well. We will be taking the corrupt PT Pygmy out with us into these Manticore Prime fights. These Manticore Primes are way too dangerous to take into an extended fight. We want these fights to end as quickly as possible. We talked last episode about the importance of taking, or the value of taking in opposite elements. So here we're fighting the Ice Manticore, so we've brought out our Fire Manticore Prime. Notice we have our full set of chitin on, we have our Corruption Stone. You can see that this Manticore Prime has a permanent stat increase with that head buff. It has the 100% imprinting bonus. We have a fully gear stacked Manticore Fire Prime fighting this Ice Wild Manticore Prime, and this is a fight that we don't want to take into a long fight. That's why we're coming out with that corrupt Pygmy. We want to get this fight over with as quickly as we can. Let's take a second here and look back at the amount of damage this Ice Manticore Prime does. In all reality, I don't think we could take 2 hits. That first hit takes off more than half of our Tames health, which is way too much for us to deal with. The key to fighting the Manticore Primes, you're going to notice again here as we take out our Ice Manticore Prime to fight the Wildfire Manticore Prime, we want to get off a big hit with our Manticore Saddle Enhancement part to start the fight. We do not want to initiate the fight until we've landed a big shot of damage, and just like our Manticore, the Wild Manticores are going to pause for just a second as they try and hit us with their enhancement part, that Manticore Blast. So when they pause like that, it gives you an easy shot to land your Manticore Blast, and that's when we hit it with all 6 to 8 of those individual rockets, and that's how we get these fights over as quickly as possible. We can bring out a Dodo Pygmy, however, I want to use as few health potions as possible. Every health potion I use is an expense. It's a reward we're not getting necessarily from these fights. I didn't get very many potions from fighting these Manticore Primes. Not all the Primes always give you a potion, and they take out so much health. You really need to make sure that you bring potions to this fight, because you really cannot take more than a couple of hits. Even when we came out here with our Dodo Pygmy, we pretty much get destroyed within a very short period of time. This is a very, very dangerous fight. They're pretty fast fights as well. You just don't realize quite how much damage that Wild Prime Manticore is doing to you until you're dead. So I'd really encourage approaching these fights with extreme caution. Most of the time when we go to fight a Wild Prime tier Dino, it's a mess. We first have to fight whatever's in the vicinity before we can even get to the fight. That is a common theme. This time I went out to fight a Wild Prime Manticore, and of course a Phoenix jumped me. So I landed for a second to check if I still had enough potions, if my stamina was up, and of course a Prime Leech jumped me. Before I can even start the fight with the Tame I'm trying to fight, I really need to make sure that I position this fight in a way where I'm going to have the highest chance of success, and running into a Prime Phoenix or getting hit by that Leech Bomb on the back end of my fight would be massively detrimental. I would definitely consider the Prime Manticores a top tier Prime, and one of the last few you should consider challenging. I don't think we could take this Prime on with our Prime Wyvern successfully. I don't feel like our Apex Dragons have the juice either. Maybe you can. I just don't want to burn that many potions for those fights. I did bring out our Prime Lava Golem to see if that Prime Lava Golem has a shot at taking on the ice version of the Manticore Prime, and I'm fairly content to say that it does. It has a real good shot. Actually, I think the golems are maybe the strongest creatures in the mod, hands down. If you're in a tribe and you can get a golem gang going, you and all your tribe mates just in golems wrecking stuff, I really think you have a really good shot at taking down a lot of these tough primes in a efficient fashion. The loot from the prime Manticores is pretty good. Not great, but good. For this episode's Ragnarok base location, we're looking at Eskel's Edge, latitude and longitude on screen right now. This is a location only for large tribes, only if you're brave, and only not on a highly populated server. Super dangerous here. Very dangerous. I got into multiple prime fights just trying to get up this little section here. It is pretty isolated in the sense that you're off the ground, but there's a lot of dangerous stuff that spawns here, and odds are really good people are going to pick fights near your base if you build here. It's really just a spot for large tribes, but it is a location that you could build on and have some success, since you can build those docks domes and store your tames. Here's a mega Dodo Rex pretty much walking vertically up the cliff edge. It really is a just incredibly dangerous location. Only build here if you're brave, only build here if you are in a large tribe, and it is a fun spot. It's pretty central. We want to take a look at some ancient primes, the ancient Dimorphodon. We've rolled a few of these and it's awesome. This thing's so cool. It looks kind of like a T-Rex or an Allosaurus got its head stretched, but they're surprisingly big. I didn't realize how big this ancient was. I also didn't realize just how deadly, dangerous, and effective this ancient Dimorphodon Prime is. The Dimorphodon Prime can summon in a prime minion just like all the other ancient primes. It's got the bite attack, which is nice, but it's got this wicked sweet fireball. This fireball is so accurate. It actually goes where you want it to go, which is fantastic. You pull out your prime wyvern and all you have is disappointment every time you push the C key. With the ancient Dimorphodon Prime, it's the complete opposite. You look where you're aiming, you take a second, you fire, you hit your target. It's absolutely fantastic. I just bullied this prime wild bear super hardcore with this ancient Dimorphodon. Thanks Kumar for the name suggestion for our Apex Thylacoleus. I'm doing a random shout out from the subscriber pool. Thank you Wee Woo for the support. I really appreciate that. If you want a chance to get mentioned in the next video, subscribe now. Right now, push the subscribe button. From those prime eggs, we got ourselves a Dodo Wyvern, and you guys know just how much I love Dodo Wyverns. If you've been watching the series, I'm a huge fan. We're gonna burn a prime kibble, and we're gonna sacrifice this tame immediately for a prime heart relic. Rest in peace, you've done good work for us. We're in Viking Bay, and we've got our flippers on, so you better believe we're gonna check out some more water tames. Dox isn't really a water mod, but there are Apex Megalodons, which you can do shark stuff with. They're like the regular vanilla ARK Megalodons, just bigger, scarier, hit harder, more health points. They're Apex, they're a little extra, but overall it's the same basic Megalodon tames that you use to get a Megalodon. You can tame an Apex Megalodon as well as an Apex Plesiosaur. You can get a Nessie. These are a lot of fun. They do have that nice platform saddle. There are Apex Squids. I wasn't all that motivated to go tame one of these. It sounded like a nightmare and a half. But it's just like every other squid tame. The mechanics aren't different. They're a little bigger than you think they might be sometimes, especially with these big, large underwater ocean tames. Overall, your ancient angler is going to be your best bet for going into the waters in the DinoOverhaul X mod. I did try and breed them with no success. I could get a mate boost, but I could not get a little imprinted shark. Oh well. I did have some fun building on the platform saddle. I suppose you could just water world it. I did get just the ugliest base I could possibly throw up real quick on top of here. It's really hideous. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. Just wanted to show it could be done. You could go out and live on the oceans. It's pretty quiet out there except for all the Apex water tames, the Titan eels, and mega eels. Hey, but 10 out of 10, love the derpy swim animation, would do again. Let's talk about Jerboas. We're going to go into our docs book, and it's going to have a lot of info about Jerboas. This is the way you get there. Don't bother reading it. I'm going to show it to you on screen. We talked about Jerboas and taming pygmies a little bit in the past. If you're not sure how to tame pygmies, I highly recommend going back to episode 9 or 10. And there we talked about how to tame them, how to evolve them. This time with the Jerboa Pygmy, we're going to do some gambling. Remember I said to never get rid of anything in the mod. You never know when you might need it. Those prime heads that don't necessarily have an evolution, we can take into a prime tier Jerboa Pygmy. We can throw in a blueprint and we can roll the dice for something a little better. It doesn't seem to matter what prime head you put in. It doesn't seem to matter what blueprint you put in or how good that blueprint is. The only thing that matters is that your Jerboa is up to the prime tier and it's over level 1125. If you can get your hands on that kind of a pygmy, you've got the gambler and you want to start the gambling. I recommend not doing what I'm doing right now. This was a bad idea. You want to not stress out the pygmies by putting this much loot in the pygmies. They made a kerfluffle. They burned some raptor heads. They burned out some of my prime heads without using all of the blueprints, so I ended up needing to go and burn more prime heads. It's a little bit of a bug, not a big deal. Take your time, put in a couple of heads at a time at most. Don't make the same mistake I did. The big exciting thing we can get our hands on here are the DOX Fatman Nuke Launchers. Yeah, that's right, the Fatman's the way to go. It's the way you get your hands on the machine, the tool, what you need to shoot the nuclear missiles. That's right, the mod has nukes. If you weren't excited for this mod and you've been watching for 19 episodes, thanks. I appreciate the support. That being said, these nukes are a lot of fun and we are going to take them out for a spin. We also got our hands on almost a max level DOX poison pistol, which is pretty exciting. This is the point where you say, what do you do with all the other loot that wasn't nearly as awesome? Well, you can get yourselves some Jerboa, not gambling, but recycling. I'm going to throw all of that loot into my industrial grinder. I'm going to flip that on. I'm going to pull out the 2 special DOX metals. Then I'm going to run my way over to my loot boxes. I'm going to check out my enhanced armor. You can use any enhanced armor to do this. Remember, don't throw anything out. I've got some enhanced armor that isn't really getting used. However, just because it's not as good as my other armor or as valuable, it doesn't seem to matter exactly what armor you put in. You're going to get element out. You're going to get a good bit of element out. I turned the Jerboa's loot into that titanium and that tungsten, and then you can see here that as I put in a higher tier of armor, that ride armor over cloth, I'm getting a lot more element. So always pick up all the loot. Don't drop anything. You never know when you're going to want some element. This was a super fun mechanic and a really nice way to handle the Jerboa Pygmies, one of the best pygmies in the mod for this feature, if nothing else. Remember with those pygmies, when you upgrade that pygmy, it rerolls their levels. I tamed about 40 Jerboa pygmies before I got one over level 1125. These nukes are awesome. They're also the most dangerous thing you can possibly touch. I recommend using some of these dragon eggs I said not to eat. Remember that part of the mod? Remember, don't throw anything out. Sure, these dragons don't fit into the evolution anymore, but they make a great platform if I need to shoot off a missile that's likely to just kill us. This missile just obliterates consistently. They're super expensive. You can make them in the DOX crafting station. That's the same station where you will repair your Fatman nuclear launcher. And the only way to get that Fatman is to start fighting megas or start fighting titans, or to roll it in a Jerboa. Getting that Fatman nuke launcher and getting our hands on those nuclear missiles is really game changing. From this point forward, it's a safe bet that nuking it is a good option. I'm showing you the loot from the Prime Ferox first. I know that's a little backwards. I hope it makes sense in a second here. I recommend not fighting the Prime Ferox. It's way too dangerous. I'm not even willing to take out my Tames against it. It's way too dangerous. You can kill it with the Wyvern, but it's a teeny tiny target, and the C attack on the Prime Wyvern absolutely sucks. But the Ferox isn't super necessary for most of our progression. At this point, the biggest issue with fighting the Prime Ferox is it's always near something terrible. Here you can see I started the fight and then realized there's 2 Prime Feroxes here, and I'm in the murder snow, so there's that gem. I brought out my Manticore once the other Prime Ferox had left. I circled back, and you're going to see here the Prime Ferox is just so dangerous. I don't really recommend fighting them. I don't see a lot of value to them. I think maybe later on they might have more value, but can you see here it knocks us out of the sky? We get a massive slow and we get completely taken out of the air for a solid 10 seconds, and we are super far from this creature. 10 seconds is a long time. I thought I might get hit with that slow, so I aimed for the rocks this time. You can see we're also freezing to death. I couldn't tell if that's a prime Ferox thing or I'm just in the murder snow, so I should be dying. Ultimately though, I don't think the prime Ferox is super helpful for where we are in our progression. We can fight one right now, but until you can really kill Mega Kong, it's not really a great idea to try and tame the regular Feroxes. And if you don't have a regular Ferox, you don't really need a Ferox head for anything. So this is kind of just a pride thing to see if we can take it on. They hit stupid hard. They hit really hard. And getting knocked out of the sky for 10 seconds and that massive AoE is just so dangerous. It's not worth trying to fight them. You don't want to lose your tame, and I don't have my Dox armor on. I don't have a max level saddle on this Manticore here. I know that the odds of me having success here are just super low. I think your best bet would be to position yourself and or your tribe with some rock golems. Maybe even just pump all melee in your rock golems. Put on a Pteranodon Pygmy with that corruption stone, like we talked about earlier. I actually fell off this ledge, but YOLO, it's what I'm here to do, fight the Apex Ferox Prime. This thing is so dangerous. Even with this rock golem, I'm hitting it for good damage. This is the slow. I'm already would have been knocked out of the sky. The range on that is intense. The Prime Ferox not only has that slow, just like a regular Ferox, it can knock you up, it can knock you around, and it can go Super Saiyan, which is not like the regular Ferox. I digress. Point is, this thing is way too dangerous. I would not engage. I do not engage. You will die. Okay, maybe you won't die, but we want to note here, when it gets to about half health and below, it gets that Super Saiyan buff. Right at the moment it gets to half health, it gets that little Ferox head in your inventory. It takes about half damage. It seems to deal double damage, and its HP regeneration seems to go up about 100,000%. I'm exaggerating, but I really am just trying to impress upon you how dangerous this tame is, and it's always near something dangerous. I went to fight this one, there's a Prime Penguin and a Mega Rex. I went to fight this Prime Ferox, here's a Mega Pithecus. I'm not fighting them with those megas around. It's way too dangerous. Here you can see the vanilla Ferox, kind of that knock up, knock down. You can't jump and you can't sprint when you have that effect. And it throws this rock. These things are just wicked dangerous. Yes, you can fight them with the Prime Dragon, the Prime Wyvern, with your Manticore. You can win those fights if you position well. Here I took advantage of the terrain and I got an Apex Dragon, a fairly regular Apex Dragon. It does have that head buff. Here you can see I'm showing you just what this train looked like, why I couldn't get hit here, and it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. It took forever to try and do this. I don't think it's a winning strategy. You can beat it with a Manticore, you can beat it with the Prime Wyvern, you can beat it with your Apex Dragon. If you position well in your fight, you have a really good chance at winning these fights. It's not undefeatable, it's not impossible. I just don't think it's worth it. They're so dangerous. And right now, we don't need the Ferox head to level up any of our guys. Your best bet, as far as I'm concerned, nuke it. Kill it from space. Hey, real quick, the Titan Overlord is passing overhead. It's a new update that came into the mod. What that means is all primes and above are stronger. You're going to get the notification on top, empowering all followers, and in the bottom right corner in your status effect bar, you can see that Desert Titan, the Overlord, the Titan Dox Overlord, in your status bar, and I'm told prime dinos will glow when that's happening. I've not gotten close enough to fact check that. I hope you'll forgive me, but I'm gonna find out. If I get my hands on a glowing prime, I'll let you know. Bottom line, nuke it from orbit. Don't come near this thing. This thing is just wicked dangerous. The Prime Ferox, that wild Apex Prime Ferox, nuke it. Nuke it and run. I'm in my tech suit here. I didn't want to lose more dinos. It had already killed about 20 of them, which I want to say is embarrassing, but it feels about par for the course. I didn't realize how hard the rock throw was going to hit. I didn't know about the Super Saiyan mode. I didn't notice I was freezing to death. I fell off the cliff. Dog ate my homework. Everything went wrong. Just nuke it. Nuke the Prime Ferox. Move on with your day. Kill it from orbit. Burn it with fire and move on. I didn't think the loot here was great. All that being said, I didn't get a corruption stone. That's really at the point where we are in the mod. It's good loot if you're earlier into your prime killing. These are some of the last primes that we have to take on. In all reality, I think we could have been moving on to megas and left the prime Ferox alone. It really just rained death and destruction on us, and the worst thing is when you start shooting these nuclear missiles, these giant fat man bombs, the AoE on them has been wrecking trees and rocks. Most likely what happens is you make something even scarier angry at you. And on that note, I hope you are excited for the next episode, because this is not the end. If you learned something or enjoyed this video, share it with a friend. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. If you have joined and enjoyed before, welcome back. If you would like to see more quality content, please consider joining me in supporting the channel through Patreon and utilizing the affiliated links. Thanks.